Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of the Ranger Roundup. I am your host, David Wilson, Assistant AD for Communications here at Regis University. First, we'd like to thank Walker's Pub for being our host this year, and a big thank you to the Regis ITS for their assistance as well in bringing back the show back on campus. Tonight, we will be sitting down with three of our fall sport teams in women's soccer, men's soccer, and volleyball. We will begin tonight's show with women's soccer. Joining me right now is head coach Jeff Frykholm and our senior midfielder Madison Hand, the reigning RMAC Offensive Player of the Week. Coach, we'll get right into it. Heading into this weekend, the team is coming off back-to-back 6-point weekends. What do you think has been the main catalyst in this 4-game win streak?
Well, yeah, the girls are playing terrifically well, and I think it's not the case that we weren't playing well prior to this 4-game stretch. We were playing well. I think one of the differences is we've kind of cleaned up some of the areas that were problematic for us that kind of cost us a game or two. Probably more important than that is the understanding and buy-in to how we're trying to play, understanding of the game model. And then it's been a process of just finding the right pieces and integrating players into the system, bringing a lot of new players into the group. So it's just taken a little bit of time to come together, but I think there's been a real collective spirit, kind of a rallying around the identity that we've been starting to form. And to be honest, the players have just been so focused, intentional. Our training has been exceptionally good. Again, not that it wasn't the first couple of weeks of the season, but there's been kind of just a different level, different feel, different tone in our training sessions that I think has led to a real confidence on match day.
You know, Coach, just a follow-up. This is your first season as head coach. We're an assistant last year, so you know this team, know these girls. What were some changes or things that, you really wanted to implement as the first-year head coach of this program?
Well, I think it was a huge benefit knowing so many of the players. That said, there were a number of, almost a third of the team was new to me and new to Regis Soccer, and so there was a bit of integration, just time necessary to kind of get to know everybody, pull them together. I think regardless of whether or not I've been here as an assistant or not, I mean, when you get an opportunity to sort of run things on your own as your own program, there's a period of cultural formation, like the way that we do things here, and there were some things, some small things, some larger things perhaps that were different from years past, and that's been probably the most gratifying thing as a new head coach, just to be able to work with such a great group of players that have bought into the identity we're trying to form, our principles, our commitments to one another, and that's probably been the most enjoyable part, is just really having a few months prior to the season, obviously, to think about who is it that we want to be, and then to begin to put the steps in place to begin the process of getting there. And I couldn't be more grateful to have the players that we have in the program. They're just absolutely terrific, great soccer players, but just really, really good human beings that have bought in. Certainly we've had our small bumps in the road the first few weeks, as any team may have from time to time, but I've been so pleased and proud and impressed with the way that we've just kind of kept a level head, steady on, and that patience and buy-in has now, it's been bearing some good fruit the last couple of weekends.
Yes, sir. Madison, first off, congratulations on your Player of the Week win.
Thank you.
2 goals last Sunday against Black Hills State, both coming on set pieces. Without giving away too much of the game plan, can you tell us what you're looking for and trying to do when you're positioning yourself for corner kicks on those goals?
Our team has always been pretty strong in set pieces. We've scored a lot of goals off of corners. I think it's mainly just our commitment to win the ball first time. That's always been huge emphasis in practice, to win the first ball, and we have a lot of attacking players. A lot of our defensive players actually are really good in the air, and so they really commit to that, and I think that's how we put away a lot of our goals. It's good to see that, and I hope we can carry that through the weekend.
To put you on the spot a little bit, your senior goals this past Sunday were your first 2 of the season, but do you have a favorite goal during your career here at Regis? A game, one that sticks out?
Well, I mean, after Black Hills, I was talking to my brother actually, and every year we play Black Hills, I somehow managed to score 2 goals. Since my freshman year, I scored 2 goals in that game. And I was thinking back to last year when we were down 1-0 somehow, and we came together and we played really well in the second half, and we put away 2 more goals. And I don't know if I have an absolute favorite, but I'll never like forget the feeling of jumping up in the air after scoring a goal, because it's just a good feeling. And especially like I've played all over the field, and getting that reward, even if I'm a defensive mid sometimes, or I've scored goals as a center back, and just that feeling of you just made a difference for your team, I'll never forget it.
So our friends in Spearfish can't wait for you to graduate and move on, is what you're telling me. All right. Next question is for both of you. Traveling throughout the Rocky Mountain region as much as you do, what is your favorite road trip, restaurant, city? Where's your favorite place to go if it's not right here in Denver?
Ooh, I gotta say, every time we go to Texas, we always get some pretty good barbecue, which I know the whole team loves. I wouldn't say the food is the most important about those trips. Obviously, we go in as a business trip, and we make it fun. I'll never forget freshman karaoke. We do it every year. And so that's always a blast on the bus. It's a really good way to bond with your team. And so just as much as our favorite restaurant, it's the goals we score, it's the wins we take away, and everything along with that. Travel trips are really fun, but it's also a business trip. You go there to get 6 points.
Coach, what about you?
Yeah, I had to do the freshman karaoke this year as well, which I'm sure I ended up on social media way more than I would have liked. Well, I haven't traveled a lot with this team. This will be my second year traveling with them. Obviously, I do agree with what Maddie said. The joy of those trips is something special. In terms of RMAC travel, I'm not as big a fan of Texas, to be honest. That didn't treat us very well this year when we went down there. I think just thinking about the RMAC and some of the rivalries that I'm now coming into and appreciating the players like Maddie who have been here for a long time. Certainly the local, Mines and MSU are our favorite trips, whether we play them here or at their place. In terms of a little bit longer travel, we're just so lucky that we're in a conference that is just so beautiful. Last year I really enjoyed the long as it was the trip to Gunnison and then Durango, just beautiful, and being able to do what we all love to do in such a beautiful state is a pretty remarkable blessing. And so that trip was really memorable for me last year.
Well, thanks, Coach. As we look forward to these final 4 weeks of the regular season, what are some things the team is really focusing on?
Yeah, it's hard to believe we're turning the corner in the final 4 weeks. Just hearing you say that raises my anxiety level just a little bit. Obviously, we're getting into now, we're into the thick of the RMAC schedule, and these next couple of weeks will determine really, who rises to the top. So I think for us, it'll be a focus on continuous improvement, just figuring out how each week we can continually take steps to improve who we are, our understanding of each other, just our understanding of our style of play. I think it's going to be really important to be able to show different looks, and we've been working on that. So maybe one of the reasons, maybe I should have said this earlier, why I think maybe we coughed a little bit early in the season. We were actually working on training different systems to prepare for when we might need them later in the season against different looks that opponents might give us. So I think it's going to be really important to really narrow in on who we are, what we do well, continue to prepare well, not only in training but prepare for our opponents really well. So it's just a matter of trying to stay relevant in the hunt, and to do that, we talked about it this week actually. There are teams and players right now that are facing the temptation of sort of backing off the throttle, whether it's midterms, it's injuries, it's fatigue. It's this time of year is when teams begin to separate themselves mentally as well as physically. So we're really going to work hard, as we have been, on the mental side of the game, and our collective agreements and commitments and promises to one another to act a certain way, to treat each other a certain way, to train a certain way, and then obviously to compete in the best way that we can, game in, game out.
Last question that I have for both of you is, what do you think this team's ceiling is this year? Currently alone atop the RMAC standings as we pivot to the this stretch run. Where do you think this team can end up come November?
Being a senior, I have really high hopes for my senior year, and I know our senior class in general is really excited for this year. Last year we ended pretty well with a sad ending in the championship, but all of us have confidence, and the ceiling's pretty high. We're all talking about conference champs. I know it's early, but we're on a high right now, and we hope to ride that all the way through. I think throughout the season it can feel really long, like there's no time off. We train for this 6-7 weeks all year long, and so once it's like our moment, which we're in mid-season right now, it's super important to stay focused. So I think all of us are thinking about the little things on the field, what we can do off the field, just to stay focused. And I think as long as we do that, there is no cap. I really have confidence in this team, and it's just a special feeling with these girls. Like, there's something new, there's something different every year, but this team feels special to me, and I'm excited to see where we go.
That's great answer, Maddie. Yeah, I'm excited as well. I think we've said from day one, actually all the way back when I was my first meeting with the team, that your life, your team will always bend in the direction of your habits. And if we hope to bend into an RMAC championship, it'll depend on how well we adhere to the right kind of habits. And I think that's really important as we turn the last corner here, one more month of league play, to just make sure that we don't become distracted at the shiny gold coin at the end of the path, but really focus on what we need to do today, what are our habits, to continue to be really fact-based about how we approach the game, how we approach our training. And so even as we're aspiring to be the last RMAC team playing, come November and December, we also recognize that we have to do everything well today, everything well tomorrow, everything well the next day, and just take it one step at a time. And that's really been the mentality the last few weeks. And I think, again, the results have kind of begun to evidence themselves a little bit, that keeping a tight focus on where we are in this present moment, not getting too carried away with where we might be. It's just, the old adage, you just take care of business today. And I think that'll be the key, the degree to which we can continue to maintain that as our driving perspective and ambition day in and day out. I think that kind of holds the key for how long this team ends up playing. But I love this team. I love the players. I love their energy, their spirit, and their belief. We didn't start out the season in the win-loss column like we thought we would, and we talked about. There's many ways to continue to play into November, and so we still have the path in front of us, and we talked about not being maybe where we thought we would be, but maybe being exactly where we need to be, coming off of that early stretch where we didn't win the games that we thought we might. So I think we feel good. If we can stay healthy, continue to improve, I don't know why we couldn't be one of the most feared and respected teams in the RMAC come the end of the year.
Well, Madison, Coach Frykholm, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to watching the rest of your accomplishments this fall. Again, thank you for joining us on the Ranger Roundup. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Rangers Roundup. Our next guests this evening are men's soccer head coach Taylor Diem, joined by graduate students Sam Gardner and Kristian Hooker. Coach, we're going to start with you. This team is currently on a 3-game point streak, coming off of a dominating 7-0 victory over South Dakota Mines. What do you think has sparked this surge to begin conference play?
I think, looking back at it, I think the results that we're seeing right now are ultimately like a product of, the lessons that we got to learn in early parts of the season. If you look at the games that started in August and early parts of September, it was a tough non-conference schedule, not only in the opponents that we were playing, but also just being on the road for 2 weeks. It was definitely a test in the first, I would say, month of the season. And again, ultimately, I think, some unfortunate results within that first month of play, but learning some lessons in those first, 6 to 10 games are ultimately, kind of proving their worth right now. And, credit to the guys. We've put in a lot of work over the past 2 weeks, specifically in terms of, correcting some of the mistakes that we've made, and ultimately the results are starting to turn a little bit. So, happy to have kind of started RMAC play, with 4 points, but we understand that this is kind of just the start of it, and there's still a lot of work left to be done.
Gentlemen, immediately to your right has been a big part of that. Kristian, you played a huge part in this run, 3 goals in 3 straight games. What has kind of clicked for you in the attacking third the last couple of weeks?
I'd say overall just looking to get into the box more and be more dangerous. I think the first part of the season I was trying to get the ball at my feet more and play in front of defenders, and it's hard to do that and beat someone and then get to goal rather than running in behind and just getting as many shots on target as possible, and eventually they're just going to go in the more that I take. So that's been the main focus, is just getting myself in the right positions and just finishing the ball.
Coach, maybe from your perspective, what have you seen from Kristian? He was, one of your top goal scorers last year, and is producing in right now during this run.
Yeah, I would kind of echo what Chris has said. I think even looking at like the last 3 to 4 years that he's been with us, he's always been a quality player, but maybe some of the emphasis was more on like link play and trying to be a little bit more involved in like build up and trying to make things happen on the ball. Whereas, this year our emphasis to him has been a little bit more, how can you get on the end of services versus being the guy that gets the ball wide and then ultimately has a lot of work to be done before he's in goal scoring opportunities. So, credit to him. He's responded a lot to the role that we've asked him to play, playing a little bit up, a little higher, not necessarily being as involved in kind of like the build-up play as we kind of go through the thirds. But again, getting in the right opportunities at the right times, getting on the end of services, and ultimately, taking his chances when they come.
Moving to the back line, Sam, you and your teammates have limited opponents to just 10 shots on goal the last 3 games. What has kind of been the emphasis for you guys as a back row?
Just in the back line, it all starts with communication and organization right from the start. And I think we've really tried to figure that out, and I think we've been successful at figuring that out in the last 3 games. And something that we talk about all the time is just having a dog mentality, just really wanting to defend your own box and defend your own goalie. So I think we've really started to see some successes in those areas, and that's what's carrying us right now.
And then, Coach, again, your perspective, what have you seen from Sam and your defense the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, definitely more of a grittiness over the past 4 to 6 games that not necessarily saying that we didn't see in the first 6 games, but again, I feel like in the games that we've played, the small little details that we maybe haven't necessarily taken care of that have been the differences between results going our way and not going our way, and ultimately now we've really emphasized that over the last 2 to 3 weeks, and again, credit to those guys, they've paid attention, they've listened, they've put the work in training, and ultimately you're starting to see them take care of those small little differences in games now, and results are starting to kind of go our way a little bit more than they were at the beginning parts of the season.
Well, as a newbie to Regis, any one of you can answer this for me, but out of curiosity, what is the story behind the Home Depot song in your pregame? You always get to laugh from my GAs, the crowd. I'm just a little lost on what's the big deal with the Home Depot song.
Yeah, so last year we had a guy by the name of Nico Denton that he was a great guy to have on the team, and he was the first one to introduce us to that song on the warm-up playlist. And this year Michael and I took over the role of making the playlist, and we felt as a tribute to Nico that we had to keep it in there. And it gets the boys firing, it gets the boys pumped up, so had to keep it in there.
We need to get a corporate sponsorship out of this deal. Back to the field, we are now diving into the heart of the RMAC schedule. What do you 3 feel like are the key factors into reaching your goals this fall of contending for an RMAC title?
I'd say just sticking to our identities is going to be one of the biggest things for us. A lot of our play, while we do try to stick to like a similar formation each time, a lot of it is principle based, and when we stick to those principles of winning the boxes, winning the transition game, and creating runs in behind, focusing on the process rather than the outcomes of it is ultimately what has allowed us to have success over these last couple of games, and overall what we're looking to do implementing it in the future.
I mean, yeah, going into obviously the meat of the RMAC season, looking at the next 8 games, I don't think any of them are going to be easy, so again, kind of, the focus has been about kind of what our standards are for ourselves day in and day out in the training environment, and, we've always spoken about the quality that we have in this group, and making sure that those standards day to day are at a consistent level, so that ultimately when it comes to game day, it should just be like a dress routine, or a dress rehearsal, but yeah, again, a lot of quality in the group, and starting to put some things together, and if we can just take each day as an opportunity to get maybe 1% better, then ultimately as we kind of get into like the last these last 8 games, feeling really, really good about the results taking care of themselves. So again, to kind of echo what Sammy said earlier, in the interview, not worrying too much about the results, because again, I think that puts a lot of pressure on you to perform a certain way. If we can focus more on the standards and the processes that we know we can uphold every single day, then ultimately when we come to it on game day, then I think the results will take care of themselves.
Sam, anything to add?
I think it's just really important to stick together, really find the ways to never get too high and never get too low. I think that'll really carry us through the rest of the season, so, yeah.
And then, gentlemen, just out of, when you were making your decisions on where you wanted to play collegiately, why Regis? What stuck out about Regis academically, Regis athletically, that made you want to become Rangers?
Yeah, for me, coming out of high school, I was looking at a few different schools, but when I came to Regis, I just knew. Like, it just was a click. The academics were good. I felt like the culture here was something that I wanted to be a part of. And so after 5 years here now, I'm glad that I made the decision. I'm glad that I've stuck with it.
Thanks, Sam. What about you, Kristian?
For me, I didn't have a ton of schools that I had offers from at the time, but really what made the difference is the coaches believing in me and what I was able to do and how they could commit to me getting better as my time went on at Regis. So I think that was the big thing, is that overall, Regis coaches saw me for who I was and wanted me to improve, and they saw me as someone that could come in and play right away. So that was a very big decision. And then academically, Regis is a fantastic school to go to, so that was a big part of it as well.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Sam Gardner, Kristian Hooker, and Coach Taylor Diem. That will be the end of our second segment. We will be back with women's volleyball.
Thank you.
Welcome back to our final segment of the Ranger Roundup. Joining us now is head coach of our number 17th ranked volleyball team, Joel List, and senior setter, Mara LeGrand. Coach, the team is on a roll right now. Winners of 9 straight, dating back to a 3-1 showing in the Colorado Premier Challenge. What are some of the reasons you think that has led to this current winning streak?
We've got some new players on the team. That definitely has helped win some games. The schedule that I put together early on was tough because I know we have a good team. So in order to be the best, you got to play the best. So the first weekend we had a couple of losses, but because of so many new players on the team, I don't think we'd really found groove yet. Actually found it a little faster than, to be honest, faster than I thought. And now we're on a winning streak. And we've got a long ways to go, and we're getting better week by week, but I'm happy where we're at.
You touched on it, the 7 new players. Who are some of these new Rangers and how have they assimilated to the team? I know you guys were able to do a foreign tour to get familiar with each other a little bit during the summer, but just who are some of these new Rangers and how is integrating them gone?
They're all having a positive effect on the team. So whether it's on the court or off the court, they're all making a difference. We did have the opportunity of 4 transfers come to Brazil with us this summer, which helps in that transition. Amelia Davis is in the middle, transfer. She's a sophomore this year. She's helped connect with Mara. Mara does a good job feeding her. She had a great game against Northwest Missouri State. We've got Emma Prentice as an outside. She's helped with our depth at the pins. Another new player there. Kylie Strimmel's done a really good job as a freshman playing on the court. Brasia Dixon is adding depth to the middle. So 7 new players. Who else am I missing? Claudia is on the right side, a big presence there. And that's a position I always think if you want to have a really good team, you've got to have a setter that can distribute the ball to a right side and have a right side presence. And she's been very good at that.
Segues right into this of, Mara is the setter and maestro of this offense. What are some things that you discuss and focus on when you're working with new hitters, and you've had to work with a lot of new hitters this year?
Yeah, I think we really focus on trust because in these big games and as we progress in our season, we're going to play better teams and we're going to be in hard spots where that trust needs to go back and forth and that communication needs to go back and forth, and without that, we can't really be successful. So we talk a lot about that and having open communication with each other and really getting to know each other on and off the court.
Thank you. Just this past weekend, Mara became just the 10th player in program history to eclipse 2,500 assists. What does this accomplishment mean to you, Mara, and then Coach List? What does it mean to you as the person who's recruited and coached her?
Yeah, I think as a setter, I can't do anything without my passers and hitters, so I feel like while that is cool for me, it has a lot to do with them. I can't get an assist unless they put the ball away, and I can't set the ball if the passers aren't getting the balls to me, so I feel like 2/3 of that equation is my teammates, and I'm just kind of the middleman, so I feel like kudos to them on that.
And I would also deflect the compliments to my assistant coach who works with her as well. Ashley does a really good job with our setters, her being a former setter. And Ashley is the one evaluating setters, so she's the one that had found Mara as a recruit. And then to get 2,500 assists is not easy, and to have those kind of accolades in a program like Regis with tradition, anytime some of our players are breaking some of those records, it means a lot. She could have a lot more success maybe at a different school, but when we're this competitive and playing, she didn't come in and start setting her freshman year. She had to work her way into that. And so this is a big deal for her.
Well, have a couple of Nebraska natives here on stage. What are some hidden gems and things that maybe some non-Nebraska natives would know about our neighboring state?
Ooh.
We have a lot of Nebraskans on our team, and everybody's really passionate about Runza. It's a fast food restaurant in Nebraska, and we always, when we go to Shadron, there was one like right across the hotel. We all got really excited about that. So I think that's one that if you ever go to Nebraska, you got to go to Runza.
Gotta hit Runza. Runza and Valentino's are traditional places. Morrow is a hidden gem.
Yep.
We found her. I would say Lake McConaughey is a hidden gem, or go tanking down the Niobrara River. That's something not a lot of people know. Even know what tanking is, you'll have to ask later.
It's a lot of fun in the Midwest. Lived in Kansas for 3 years. There's a lot more stuff to do
That's
out there
right.
than people
But
think.
Nebraska's not for everyone, though.
Well,
Yes,
my final question for both of you is about your goals and aspirations for the rest of the season. We're currently tied atop the RMAC standings of MSU Denver. What are some keys to, moving forward this fall?
What are your goals?
Our goal as a team is to win a national championship, and I think that is attainable for us with the talent that we have and the culture we have on the team, but it's going to be something where we have to consistently work as hard as we can, and we can't take days off.
Yeah, and they talk about that a lot. And so my goal is to try and make that come to fruition. We do have the talent. I think there's no doubt about that, but it's going to be, are they going to work hard enough to make that happen? And so that's a goal, always winning RMAC. I love that we've got some really good teams in the conference that are performing well, and we get to play them here coming up in the next couple weeks. We hope to see all these fans out here watching us today. Hopefully they come to our matches and watch them.
Yes, circle October 22nd, hosting MSU Denver that night on our home floor. That'll be a big one. Well, fans, that'll do it for our first episode of the Ranger Roundup. We'd like to thank our 3 coaches and student athletes for joining us. And thank you to our audience and Walker's Pub for having us. We'll see you at our Rangers games this fall and right here in October for episode 2. Have a great evening.
Thank you.